Helen's journey into motherhood at 67 was nothing short of miraculous. As she cradled little Grace in her arms, she marveled at the tiny fingers and toes, the soft breath against her chest, and the overwhelming love that filled her heart. The mansion that had once echoed with emptiness now reverberated with the gentle coos and occasional cries of her newborn daughter. In those first few weeks, Helen found herself navigating a world she had never imagined would be hers. Sleepless nights blended into exhausting days as she learned to change diapers, prepare bottles, and soothe her baby's cries. Julie, ever present and supportive, became an invaluable guide, sharing the wisdom she had gained from raising her own children years ago. "You're doing wonderfully, Helen," Julie would often say, her eyes twinkling with a mixture of pride and amusement as she watched her older sister fumble with a onesie or rock Grace to sleep. Helen would smile tiredly in response, grateful for her sister's presence and the chance to rebuild their relationship. "I never thought I'd be so happy to be this exhausted," she'd reply, her voice soft with wonder. As the weeks turned into months, Helen's body slowly recovered from the ordeal of pregnancy and childbirth. Dr. Adams, who had become more than just her physician but a trusted friend, continued to monitor her health closely. During one of her checkups, he shook his head in amazement. "Helen, I've got to admit, you've proven me wrong in the best possible way," he said, reviewing her latest test results. "Your recovery is nothing short of remarkable." Helen beamed, bouncing Grace gently on her knee. "It's all thanks to this little one," she said, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "She gives me a reason to keep going, to stay strong." As Grace grew, so did Helen's confidence as a mother. She found herself relishing in the simple joys she had once overlooked in her pursuit of wealth and success. The first smile, the first laugh, the first time Grace rolled over, each milestone was celebrated with a fervor that surprised even Helen herself. Michael, true to his word, remained a constant presence in their lives. He would visit regularly, bringing not just gifts for Grace but a warmth and companionship that Helen had long forgotten she craved. Their relationship blossomed slowly, built on a foundation of shared experiences and mutual respect. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset while Grace slept peacefully indoors, Michael turned to Helen with a serious expression. "You know, Helen, watching you these past months, it's been incredible," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've become this amazing mother, and I find myself falling in love with you all over again." Helen felt her heart skip a beat, a blush creeping across her cheeks. "Michael, she began, then paused, gathering her thoughts. "I never thought I'd have this chance. To be a mother, to reconnect with you. It's more than I ever dreamed possible." As they leaned in for a tender kiss, Helen marveled at how life had come full circle. The woman who had once valued only financial success now found her greatest wealth in the love of her daughter and the man beside her. But life as a new mother in her late 60s wasn't without its challenges. Helen often found herself grappling with fears and insecurities that younger mothers might not face. Would she live long enough to see Grace grow up? How would she keep up with an energetic toddler in just a few short years? These worries would sometimes overwhelm her in the quiet moments of the night as she sat in the rocking chair, cradling Grace close. It was during one such moment that Julie found her, tears silently streaming down her face. "Helen." Julie's concerned voice broke through the silence. "What's wrong?" Helen looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I'm scared, Julie," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I'm not here long enough for her? What if I'm robbing her of the chance to have a mother who can keep up with her, who'll be around to see her graduate, get married, have her own children?" Julie knelt beside the rocking chair, placing a comforting hand on Helen's arm. "Oh, "Helen," she said softly, "nobody knows how long they have. But what matters is the quality of the time we spend with our loved ones, not the quantity. And let me tell you, the love and dedication you're showing Grace, it's more than some children get in a lifetime." Helen nodded, drawing strength from her sister's words. She looked down at Grace, peacefully sleeping in her arms, and made a silent vow. She would make every moment count, fill every day with love and laughter, and create memories that would last a lifetime, however long that might be. As Grace approached her first birthday, Helen threw herself into planning a celebration. The mansion, once a symbol of her solitary success, was transformed into a wonderland of balloons, streamers, and laughter. Family members she hadn't seen in years, old friends, and new acquaintances all gathered to celebrate not just Grace's first year, but the remarkable journey that had brought them all together. Dr. Adams, now a close family friend, raised a toast during the party. "To Grace," he began, his voice carrying across the room, "whose very existence reminds us that miracles do happen, and to Helen, whose courage and love have shown us all what it truly means to embrace life's unexpected gifts." As the guests cheered and clinked glasses, Helen felt a surge of emotion. She looked around the room, at Julie chatting animatedly with cousins they hadn't seen in decades, at Michael entertaining a group of children with silly faces, and at Grace giggling in the arms of a doting aunt. This, she realized, was the empire she was meant to build all along, not one of brick and mortar, but of flesh and blood, of love and connection. Later that night, as the last of the guests departed and Helen tucked an exhausted Grace into her crib, she paused to reflect on the whirlwind year that had passed. She thought of the woman she had been, driven by ambition and fear of vulnerability, and marveled at how dramatically her priorities had shifted. "My sweet Grace," she whispered, gently stroking her daughter's cheek. "You've taught me more in 1 year than I learned in all my decades of chasing success. You've shown me that it's never too late to change, to love, to become the person you were meant to be." As she quietly left the nursery, Helen felt a profound sense of peace wash over her. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges she was only beginning to anticipate. But for the first time in her life, she felt truly equipped to face whatever came her way. With Grace's love as her compass, Julie's support as her anchor, and Michael's companionship as her comfort, Helen stepped into her new role not just as a mother, but as a woman reborn. The coming years would bring their own set of joys and trials. Helen would learn to navigate the delicate balance of being an older mother in a world that often didn't know quite what to make of her. She would face judgmental stares at the playground, well-meaning but hurtful comments from strangers, and her own physical limitations as she strived to keep up with an increasingly active child. But for every challenge, there was a moment of pure joy that made it all worthwhile. The first time Grace said, "Mama," Helen felt her heart might burst with happiness. When Grace took her first tottering steps across the living room, Helen and Michael cheered as if their daughter had just won an Olympic gold medal. And on Grace's first day of preschool, Helen fought back tears of pride and nostalgia, marveling at how quickly the time had flown. Through it all, Helen discovered reserves of strength and patience she never knew she possessed. She learned to laugh off the awkward moments, like when a new acquaintance assumed she was Grace's grandmother, and to cherish the special bond that came from being an older parent. Her life experiences became a rich tapestry of stories and lessons to share with her daughter, and she found that her age brought a level of wisdom and perspective to her parenting that she might not have had in her younger years. As Grace grew, so did the deep connection between mother and daughter. Helen made it her mission to create a childhood filled with love, laughter, and learning. She read stories every night, planned adventures big and small, and always made time to listen to Grace's thoughts and dreams, no matter how fanciful they might be. One lazy Sunday afternoon, as they lay in the grass of their sprawling backyard, Grace turned to Helen with wide, curious eyes. "Mommy," she asked, her voice tinged with the innocence of youth, "why did you wait so long to have me?" Helen paused, considering how to answer this complex question in a way her young daughter could understand. "Well, sweetheart," she began, running her fingers through Grace's soft curls, "sometimes life doesn't go according to plan. For a long time, I thought I needed other things to make me happy. But then you came along, and you showed me what true happiness really is." Grace seemed to ponder this for a moment before breaking into a wide smile. "I'm glad you waited for me, Mommy," she said, snuggling closer to Helen. "It means I get to have you all to myself." Helen's heart swelled with love as she hugged her daughter close. In that moment, she knew without a doubt that every struggle, every fear, every moment of doubt had been worth it. For in Grace, she had found not just a daughter, but a purpose, a legacy, and a love more profound than she had ever imagined possible. As the years continued to pass, Helen watched with pride and a touch of bitter sweetness as Grace blossomed into a vibrant young girl. With each passing day, Helen became more aware of the precious gift of time she had been given. She threw herself into creating lasting memories, documenting their journey together through photographs, videos, and heartfelt journal entries. On Grace's 10th birthday, Helen presented her with a beautifully bound book, a collection of stories, wisdom, and love letters that she had been working on since Grace was born. "This is for you, my darling," Helen said, her voice thick with emotion, "so that no matter what happens, you'll always have a piece of me with you." Grace hugged the book to her chest, her eyes shining with understanding beyond her years. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered. "But you know what? The best gift is having you here with me right now." As Helen embraced her daughter, she silently thanked whatever forces had aligned to grant her this extraordinary second chance at life and love. She knew that whatever the future held, the love between her and Grace would endure, a testament to the unbreakable bond between mother and child, a bond that transcended age, defied expectations, and proved that it's never too late for miracles to happen. As Grace entered her teenage years, Helen found herself navigating a new set of challenges. The energetic child who once clung to her hand now yearned for independence, and Helen struggled to find the right balance between protection and freedom. At 79, she was acutely aware of the generational gap between them, but her love for Grace drove her to bridge it however she could. One evening, as Helen was preparing dinner, Grace stormed into the kitchen, her face flushed with anger. "Mom, you just don't understand," she exclaimed, throwing her backpack onto a chair. "Everyone else is allowed to go to the concert. Why can't I?" Helen took a deep breath, reminding herself of the patience she had cultivated over the years. "Sweetheart," she began gently, "it's not that I don't want you to have fun. I'm just concerned about your safety." Grace rolled her eyes, a gesture that sent a pang through Helen's heart. "You're always worried about safety. I'm not a baby anymore, Mom. I can take care of myself." As Helen watched her daughters retreating back, she couldn't help but reflect on the irony of the situation. Here she was, a woman who had defied all odds to become a mother at 67. Now facing the universal struggles of parenting a teenager. Later that night, unable to sleep, Helen found herself in Grace's room, watching her daughter's peaceful slumber. The anger from earlier had melted away, leaving behind the face of the little girl Helen sometimes still saw when she looked at Grace. Gently, she brushed a strand of hair from Grace's forehead, marveling at how quickly the years had passed. Oh, my darling, Helen whispered, her voice barely audible. If only you knew how precious every moment with you is to me. The next morning, Helen made a decision. Over breakfast, she turned to Grace with a smile. "How about we make a deal?" she proposed. "You can go to the concert, but I'll drive you there and pick you up afterward. And in return, you spend this Saturday with me, doing whatever I choose. Deal?" Grace's eyes lit up, a mix of surprise and excitement crossing her face. "Really? You mean it?" At Helen's nod, she broke into a wide grin. "Deal!" That Saturday, Helen took Grace to a small, nondescript building in the heart of the city. Grace looked around, confused. "Mom, what is this place?" Helen smiled mysteriously. "This, my dear, is where I started my first business. It was just a tiny real estate office back then, but it was the beginning of everything." As they walked through the now empty rooms, Helen shared stories of her younger days, the struggles, the triumphs, the lessons learned. Grace listened with rapt attention, seeing her mother in a new light. "You know," Helen said, pausing by a dusty window, "I used to think success was all about making money and building an empire. But now I realize true success is about the lives you touch, the love you share." Grace squeezed her mother's hand. "You've definitely succeeded then, Mom," she said softly. The day continued with visits to other significant places from Helen's past. With each stop, Grace's understanding of her mother deepened, and Helen felt the gap between them narrowing. As they sat in a small cafe that evening, exhausted but content, Grace looked at Helen with newfound admiration. "Mom," she began hesitantly, "I'm sorry about the other day. I guess I sometimes forget how unique our situation is." Helen reached across the table, clasping her daughter's hand. "Oh, sweetheart. Our situation may be unique, but our struggles aren't. Every parent worries, every child rebels. It's all part of growing up, for both of us." Grace nodded, a thoughtful expression on her face. "I'm glad you're my mom, you know? Even if you are older than my friends, grandparents," she added with a cheeky grin. Helen laughed, her heart light with joy. "And I'm grateful every day that I get to be your mother," she replied. As they drove home, a comfortable silence settled between them. Helen glanced at Grace, who was gazing out the window, lost in thought. In that moment, Helen felt a profound sense of peace. Yes, there would be more challenges ahead. Yes, time was still a precious commodity. But she had been given this extraordinary gift, the chance to love, to guide, to be a mother, and she was determined to make every moment count. The years continued to roll by, each bringing its own set of joys and challenges. Helen watched with pride as Grace blossomed into a young woman, excelling in her studies and developing a passion for environmental conservation, a field that Helen, with her background in real estate development, found both ironic and inspiring. As Grace's high school graduation approached, Helen found herself grappling with a mix of emotions. Pride in her daughter's accomplishments warred with an underlying anxiety about the future. At 84, Helen was still remarkably healthy, thanks to the lifestyle changes she had made since becoming a mother, but she couldn't ignore the reality of her age, especially as Grace prepared to leave for college. The night before the graduation ceremony, Helen knocked softly on Grace's door. "Come in," came the muffled response. Helen entered to find Grace surrounded by half-packed boxes, her usually tidy room in a state of organized chaos. "How's the packing going, sweetheart?" Helen asked, perching on the edge of the bed. Grace sighed, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture so reminiscent of Helen's own that it made her heart ache. "It's going," Grace replied. "It's just, there's so much to do, so much to think about." "Mom, what if I'm not ready?" Helen patted the spot next to her, and Grace sat down, leaning her head on her mother's shoulder just as she had done countless times as a child. "Oh, my darling," Helen said softly, "no one ever feels completely ready. But trust me, you are prepared for this. You're smart, kind, and stronger than you know." Grace looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "But what about you, Mom? Will you be okay without me?" The question hit Helen like a physical blow. For 17 years, her life had revolved around Grace. The thought of an empty house, of days stretching out without the sound of her daughter's laughter, was almost unbearable. But Helen knew she had to be strong for Grace's sake. "I'll miss you terribly," Helen admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "But this is your time to spread your wings, to discover who you are outside of being my daughter. And I'll be right here, cheering you on every step of the way." Grace hugged her mother tightly. "I love you, Mom," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." As they held each other, Helen's mind wandered back to that day, 17 years ago, when she had first held Grace in her arms. The fear, the uncertainty, the overwhelming love, it all came rushing back. But now, as she embraced her nearly grown daughter, Helen felt a sense of completion. Whatever happened in the future, she had given Grace roots and wings. She had loved her with every fiber of her being, and in doing so, Helen had found the truest, most profound purpose of her life. The next day, as Helen watched Grace walk across the stage to receive her diploma, she felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning, she saw Julie, Michael, and Dr. Adams, all beaming with pride. "We wouldn't have missed this for the world," Julie said, squeezing Helen's hand. As Grace's name was called, Helen stood up, cheering loudly, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. In that moment, surrounded by the family she had built, watching the daughter she had once thought impossible, Helen knew that her legacy was secure. It wasn't in the buildings she had constructed or the fortune she had amassed. It was in the love she had given, the lives she had touched, and the remarkable young woman now embarking on her own journey. As Grace ran to embrace her after the ceremony, her cap askew and her eyes shining with excitement, Helen whispered a silent thank you to the universe for the miracle of motherhood, for the gift of time, and for the endless capacity of the human heart to love, to grow, and to find joy in the most unexpected places. The future stretched out before them, uncertain but full of promise. And Helen, who had once measured her life in financial quarters and real estate deals, now measured it in moments, precious, beautiful moments with the daughter who had changed everything. As she hugged Grace tightly, Helen knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, the love between them would. The day Helen and Michael helped Grace move into her college dorm was a bittersweet symphony of emotions. At 85, Helen found the physical exertion of carrying boxes and climbing stairs more challenging than she cared to admit. But her determination to be there for every moment of this milestone kept her going. As they arranged Grace's belongings in the small room, Helen couldn't help but notice the looks of curiosity and confusion from other students and their parents. She was used to it by now, the double takes, the whispered questions. But today, she didn't let it bother her. Her focus was entirely on Grace, who flitted about the room, a bundle of nervous energy and excitement. "Mom, do you think I've packed enough sweaters?" Grace asked, chewing on her lower lip. "What if it gets really cold?" Helen smiled, remembering her own first day of college so many years ago. "Sweetheart, if you need more, we can always send them. Or better yet, it'll be a good excuse for me to visit," she added with a wink. As the day wound down and the moment of farewell approached, Helen felt a lump forming in her throat. She watched as Grace hugged Michael tightly, thanking him for being there. Then, Grace turned to her. "Mom," she began, her voice wavering slightly. "I don't know if I can do this." Helen cupped her daughter's face in her hands, looking into eyes that mirrored her own. "Grace, my darling. You can do anything you set your mind to. You've been preparing for this your whole life. And remember, I'm just a phone call away." They embraced, holding each other tightly. Helen breathed in the scent of her daughter's hair, trying to memorize every detail of this moment. "I love you, Mom," Grace whispered. "Thank you for everything." As Helen and Michael drove away from the campus, leaving a piece of their hearts behind, Helen felt a mix of pride, anxiety, and a strange sense of liberation. For the first time in 18 years, she was facing a future not centered around daily caregiving. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. The first few weeks were the hardest. Helen found herself wandering into Grace's room, half expecting to find her there, buried in a book or tapping away at her computer. The house felt too quiet, too empty. But slowly, with Michael's unwavering support and Julie's frequent visits, Helen began to adjust to this new rhythm of life. She threw herself into new projects, volunteering at local shelters, and even starting a support group for older parents. Her experiences as a mother who had started her journey later in life gave her a unique perspective that others found valuable and comforting. Grace called regularly, her voice filled with stories of new friends, challenging classes, and the occasional bout of homesickness. Helen treasured these calls, carefully noting every detail Grace shared, her heart swelling with pride at her daughter's accomplishments and aching with the desire to protect her from any hardships. As the months passed, Helen noticed a subtle shift in their relationship. Grace's calls, while still frequent, became shorter. Her visits home, eagerly anticipated by Helen, were filled with tales of a life Helen was no longer part of. It was a natural progression, Helen knew, but it didn't make it any easier to accept. One evening, as Helen was preparing for bed, her phone lit up with a message from Grace. It was a simple text. "Mom, I met someone. His name is Ethan. I think I'm in love." Helen sat heavily on the edge of her bed, a whirlwind of emotions coursing through her. Joy at her daughter's happiness warred with a sudden, sharp pang of mortality. At 86, Helen was acutely aware that she might not have as much time as she wished to see Grace's life unfold. With trembling fingers, she typed back, "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I can't wait to hear all about him." Over the next few months, Helen listened as Grace gushed about Ethan, his kindness, his intelligence, his shared passion for environmental causes. She offered advice when asked, bit her tongue when she wanted to caution against moving too fast, and always, always expressed her love and support. As Grace's junior year came to a close, Helen received another life-changing call. "Mom," Grace said, her voice a mix of excitement and nervousness, "Ethan and we're engaged." For a moment, Helen couldn't speak. Images flashed through her mind, Grace as a newborn, taking her first steps, heading off to her first day of school. And now, her little girl was embarking on a new chapter of her life, one that Helen had never been sure she'd live to see. "Oh, Grace," she finally managed, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so happy for you, my darling. So very happy." As they talked through the details, the ring, the proposal, the tentative wedding plans, Helen felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would be there for this. She would summon every ounce of strength in her aging body to dance at her daughter's wedding, to welcome Ethan into their family, to continue being the mother Grace needed, no matter how old they both were. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear. At 88, Helen moved a bit slower, leaned a bit more heavily on her cane, but her eyes sparkled with joy as she helped Grace into her wedding dress. "Mom," Grace said, turning to face Helen, a vision in white. "Do you remember what you told me on my first day of college, that I could do anything I set my mind to?" Helen nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. "Well," Grace continued, taking her mother's hands in hers, "I want you to know that I've carried those words with me every day. You've taught me so much, about love, about resilience, about embracing life's unexpected gifts. I am who I am because of you." As Helen walked Grace down the aisle, supported by Michael on one side and her cane on the other, she felt a profound sense of completion. The journey that had begun with a shocking diagnosis at 67 had led her here, to this moment of pure, unadulterated joy. Watching Grace and Ethan exchange vows, Helen reflected on the unconventional path her life had taken. She had defied medical odds, societal expectations, and her own fears to embrace motherhood at an age when most were settling into retirement. It hadn't been easy. There had been challenges, doubts, and moments of sheer exhaustion. But as she gazed at her daughter, radiant with happiness, Helen knew with absolute certainty that she would choose this path again in a heartbeat. Later, as she swayed gently with Grace during the mother-daughter dance, Helen leaned in close. "Thank you," she whispered. Grace pulled back slightly, her brow furrowed in confusion. "For what, Mom?" Helen smiled, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "For making me a mother. For giving my life meaning beyond anything I could have imagined. For being you." As the music swelled around them, Helen held her daughter close, marveling at the journey that had brought them here. She didn't know how many more years she had left. But in this moment, surrounded by love and bathed in the glow of Grace's happiness, Helen felt truly, profoundly blessed. The future stretched out before them, filled with possibilities, the potential for grandchildren, for new adventures, for more love than Helen had ever dreamed possible. And though her body might be slowing down, her heart was as full and vibrant as ever, ready to embrace whatever joys and challenges lay ahead. As the night wound down and guests began to depart, Helen found a quiet moment alone. She closed her eyes, sending a silent thank you to the universe for the miraculous gift of motherhood, for the strength to overcome every obstacle, and for the immeasurable love that had transformed her life. In that moment, Helen understood that her legacy was not in the buildings she had constructed or the fortune she had amassed, but in the love she had given and received, in the lives she had touched, and in the remarkable woman her daughter had become. It was a legacy of love, of courage, and of the extraordinary power of the human spirit to embrace life's unexpected journeys. As Grace and Ethan left for their honeymoon, showered with rose petals and well-wishes, Helen stood arm in arm with Michael and Julie, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. She had been given a second chance at life, a miracle beyond her wildest dreams, and she had seized it with both hands, living every moment to its fullest. The road ahead was uncertain, as it always had been, but Helen faced it with a serene smile, secure in the knowledge that the love between her and Grace, a love that had defied odds, overcome obstacles, and transformed both their lives, would endure, a beacon of hope and a testament to the incredible journey they had begun together against all odds. The years following Grace's wedding unfolded like the gentle turning of pages in a beloved book. Helen, now in her early 90s, found each day a precious gift, a chance to witness more of the beautiful life she had helped create. It was on a crisp autumn morning, just as the leaves were beginning to paint the world in hues of gold and crimson, that Helen received the news that would once again transform her world. Grace's voice on the phone was filled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation as she shared the news. "Mom, I'm pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." For a moment, Helen sat in stunned silence, her free hand clutching the fabric of her sweater over her heart. Then, a laugh bubbled up from deep within her, a sound of pure joy that seemed to shed years from her aged frame. "Oh, my darling girl," she finally managed, her voice thick with emotion. "What wonderful news." As the months passed and Grace's belly swelled with new life, Helen found herself embarking on a new adventure. She threw herself into preparations with a vigor that belied her years, knitting tiny booties, researching the latest in baby care, and sharing words of wisdom gleaned from her own unconventional journey into motherhood. Grace and Ethan visited often during the pregnancy, and Helen delighted in every moment. She would place her gnarled hands on Grace's rounded belly, marveling at the kicks and movements of the life growing within. "Hello, little one," she would whisper. "I'm your great-grandmother, and I've been waiting a very long time to meet you." The day Grace went into labor, Helen was there. Her body may have been frail, but her spirit was strong and unwavering. For hours, she sat in the hospital waiting room, holding vigil with Ethan's parents, Michael and Julie. When the cry of a newborn finally pierced the air, Helen felt her heart soar. Holding her great-granddaughter for the first time, Helen was struck by an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. She gazed down at the tiny face, so reminiscent of Grace as a newborn, and felt the universe align in a perfect moment of circular completion. "What's her name?" Helen asked softly, her eyes never leaving the baby's face. Grace, exhausted but radiant, exchanged a glance with Ethan before answering. "We've decided to call her Helen," she said, "after the strongest, most loving woman we know." Tears spilled down Helen's cheeks as she cuddled little Helen close. "Hello, my namesake," she whispered. "Welcome to our family. You are so loved." As the weeks turned into months and months into years, Helen found a new rhythm to her life. Despite the physical limitations that came with her advancing age, she was determined to be an active presence in her great-granddaughter's life. She regaled little Helen with stories of her own unlikely journey into motherhood, of the miracle that was Grace, and of the power of love to overcome all obstacles. On little Helen's 5th birthday, the family gathered for a celebration. Helen, now approaching her 100th year, sat in a comfortable armchair, watching the festivities with eyes that, though dimmed with age, still sparkled with joy and mischief. Grace approached, carrying a slice of birthday cake. "How are you feeling, Mom?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. Helen smiled, reaching out to pat her daughter's hand. "I'm feeling blessed, my dear. More blessed than I ever thought possible." As she watched little Helen blow out her candles, surrounded by family and friends, Helen reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to this moment. From the shock of unexpected motherhood at 67 to the joy of becoming a great-grandmother at 95, every step had been a gift, every challenge an opportunity for growth and love. Later that evening, as the party wound down and the house grew quiet, Helen found herself alone with Grace. They sat together on the porch swing, just as they had done countless times over the years, watching the sun dip below the horizon. "Mom," Grace began, her voice soft in the twilight, "I've been thinking a lot about our story lately, about how unlikely it all was, how many obstacles we faced. And I want you to know how grateful I am. For everything." Helen turned to her daughter, taking in the face that was so familiar, yet had changed so much over the years. She saw in Grace's eyes the same strength, the same determination that had carried them both through the challenges they had faced. "Oh, my darling," Helen replied, her voice wavering slightly. "It is I who should be grateful. You gave my life purpose when I thought I had none left. You taught me the true meaning of love, of sacrifice, of joy. Every moment, every struggle, every triumph, it has all been worth it, 1,000 times over." As they sat in comfortable silence, Helen's mind drifted over the tapestry of their lives together. The sleepless nights of Grace's infancy, the triumphs and tears of her school years, the bittersweet departure for college, the joy of her wedding day, and now the wonder of watching Grace navigate motherhood herself. Each memory was a thread in the rich fabric of their shared history, a testament to the enduring power of their bond. "You know," Helen mused, her eyes fixed on the last sliver of sun disappearing beneath the trees, "when I first found out I was pregnant with you, I was terrified. I thought it was too late for me to become a mother, that I wouldn't have enough time. But now, looking back, I realize that it's never too late for love. It's never too late to embrace life's unexpected gifts." Grace leaned her head on her mother's shoulder, just as she had done as a child. "You've certainly proved that, Mom. You've shown me, shown all of us, what it means to live life to the fullest, to love without reservation." As the first stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Helen felt a profound sense of peace wash over her. She knew that her time was growing short, that each day was a precious gift not to be taken for granted. But there was no fear in this knowledge, only a deep gratitude for the life she had lived and the love she had shared. "Grace," she said softly, "promise me something." "Anything, Mom. Promise me that you'll always remember our story, that you'll share it with little Helen, and with her children someday. Let them know that it's never too late to start anew, to open your heart to love and to life's possibilities." Grace squeezed her mother's hand, her voice thick with emotion. "I promise, Mom. Your legacy of love will live on through all of us." As they sat together, 3 generations of strong, resilient women united by an unlikely miracle and bound by unbreakable love, Helen felt a sense of completion. Her journey, which had begun with fear and uncertainty, had blossomed into a life richer and more fulfilling than she could have ever imagined. The night deepened around them, but neither Helen nor Grace moved to go inside. They remained on the porch, sharing the comfortable silence of 2 souls perfectly in tune, watching the stars emerge one by one in the vast expanse of sky. And in that moment, surrounded by the tangible reminders of the life she had built and the love she had nurtured, Helen knew with absolute certainty that every choice, every struggle, every moment of joy had led her exactly where she was meant to be. As a cool breeze rustled the leaves, carrying with it the promise of changing seasons and new beginnings, Helen closed her eyes and offered a silent prayer of thanks for the miracle of motherhood that had come to her so unexpectedly, for the daughter who had changed everything, for the family that had grown from their unlikely beginning, and for the love that had sustained them all, a love that would endure long after she was gone, a lasting testament to the extraordinary power of embracing life's unexpected journeys. In the gentle rhythm of the porch swing, with Grace by her side and the echoes of little Helen's laughter still lingering in the air, Helen felt the full weight of her 100 years, not as a burden, but as a beautifully crafted story, full of twists and turns, joys and sorrows, all leading to this perfect moment of contentment and peace. And as the night deepened and stars multiplied in the vast sky above, Helen knew that whatever lay ahead, the love she had given and received would continue to ripple outward, touching lives and inspiring hearts for generations to come. It was a legacy beyond anything she could have imagined on that fateful day when, at 67, she had first heard the impossible news that would change her life forever. With a smile on her lips and peace in her heart, Helen Parker, mother, great-grandmother, and living testament to the power of love against all odds, embraced the night and whatever new adventures tomorrow might bring. As the seasons changed and time marched steadily onward, Helen found herself approaching her 103rd birthday. The years had taken their toll on her body, but her mind remained sharp, her spirit undimmed by the passage of time. Each day was a treasure, carefully unwrapped and savored, filled with the joy of watching her family grow and flourish. Little Helen, now 8 years old, had become her great-grandmother's constant companion. The two Helens, separated by nearly a century, yet bound by an unbreakable connection, would spend hours together. The elder Helen would share stories of her life, of the world as it once was, and of the incredible journey that had brought their family into being. The younger Helen listened with rapt attention, her eyes wide with wonder at the tales of courage, love, and the power of embracing life's unexpected turns. One crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves danced on the breeze outside her window, Helen awoke with a strange sense of clarity. She felt no fear, no regret, only a profound peace and a deep-seated knowledge that her extraordinary journey was nearing its end. "Grace," she called softly to her daughter, who had been staying at the house to help care for her. "I think it's time to gather the family." Grace, now in her mid-60s with streaks of silver in her hair, understood immediately. With tears glistening in her eyes, she nodded and began making calls. Over the next few days, the house filled with family and close friends. Michael, now in his 80s but still standing tall and strong, rarely left Helen's side. Julie, her hair completely white but her eyes as bright as ever, brought a constant stream of tea and comforting words. Ethan, Grace's husband, corralled the younger children, ensuring the house maintained a balance of somber reflection and the joyous chaos that Helen had always loved. On a quiet evening, with the sun setting in a blaze of orange and pink, Helen asked to be moved to the porch swing. Wrapped in blankets and surrounded by her loved ones, she gazed out at the world with a serene smile. "You know," she began, her voice soft but clear, "when I first found out I was pregnant with Grace at 67, I thought it was the end of everything. I couldn't have been more wrong. It was just the beginning." Grace, sitting beside her mother and holding her hand, felt tears rolling down her cheeks. "Oh, Mom," she whispered. Helen turned to her daughter, her eyes filled with love. "My darling girl, you were the miracle I never knew I needed. You gave my life purpose, filled it with more love and joy than I ever thought possible." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the gathered family. "Each one of you," she continued, "is a part of that miracle, a testament to the fact that it's never too late for new beginnings, never too late to open your heart to love." Little Helen, perched on the porch steps, piped up, "Great-grandma, are you going to heaven soon?" A hush fell over the group, but Helen just smiled. "Yes, my sweet girl, I think I am. But don't be sad. I've lived a wonderful life, far longer and fuller than I ever expected, and I'll always be with you, in your heart and in the stories we've shared." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Helen closed her eyes, feeling the gentle sway of the porch swing. "You know," she mused, "I read somewhere once that we all die twice, once when we stop breathing, and again when someone says our name for the last time." She opened her eyes, looking at each face in turn. "Promise me that you'll keep our story alive. Share it with your children, and their children. Let them know that miracles can happen at any age. that love knows no boundaries. Grace squeezed her mother's hand. We promise, Mom, your story, our story, will live on. Over the next few days, Helen's strength began to fade, but her spirit remained bright. She spent her time sharing final words of wisdom, expressing her love, and listening to the plans and dreams of her family members. Each conversation was a gift, a final thread woven into the tapestry of their shared lives. On the morning of her 103rd birthday, Helen woke early. She asked to be taken outside one last time, to feel the sun on her face and the breeze in her hair. As she sat in her wheelchair, surrounded by the family she had created against all odds, she felt a profound sense of completion. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for this beautiful life." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Helen Parker, the woman who had become a mother at 67 and a great-grandmother at 95, closed her eyes for the final time. She left this world peacefully, surrounded by the love she had nurtured and grown over decades, leaving behind a legacy that would continue to inspire and touch lives for generations to come. In the days that followed, as the family gathered to celebrate Helen's life, stories flowed like wine. Tales of her determination, her unwavering love, and her ability to embrace life's unexpected journeys were shared and cherished. Laughter mingled with tears as they remembered the remarkable woman who had defied medical odds, societal expectations, and her own fears to create a family bound by love and resilience. Grace, standing before the gathered mourners, her voice strong despite her grief, shared the story of her birth, of Helen's courage in choosing to become a mother so late in life. "My mother," she said, "taught me that it's never too late to start anew, to open your heart to love and to life's possibilities. Her journey, our journey, is a testament to the extraordinary power of love and the human spirit." As the years passed, Helen's story continued to inspire. Grace wrote a book about their unlikely journey, touching hearts around the world. Little Helen, growing into a young woman, chose a career in medicine, driven by the desire to help other women achieve their dreams of motherhood, regardless of age or circumstance. The porch swing where Helen had spent so many precious moments became a family gathering spot, a place where stories were shared, where laughter echoed, and where the presence of the remarkable woman who had started it all could still be felt. And on quiet evenings, when the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, the family would gather on that porch. They would share stories of Helen, keeping her memory alive, ensuring that her name would be spoken with love and reverence for generations to come. For in the end, Helen Parker's legacy was not measured in years or in medical marvels, but in the love she had given and inspired, in the lives she had touched, and in the enduring power of her extraordinary journey. Her story, a beacon of hope and a testament to the limitless possibilities of the human heart, would continue to echo through time, inspiring others to embrace life's unexpected gifts and to believe in the transformative power of love, no matter the odds. As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, twinkling like distant promises, the porch swing creaked gently in the breeze, as if Helen were still there, watching over her family, her love and eternal presence in the lives she had touched. And in that moment, in the hearts of all who had known her and all who would come to know her story, Helen lived on, a timeless reminder that it's never too late for miracles, never too late for love, and never too late to begin the most beautiful chapter of one's life. As the seasons changed and time marched steadily onward, Helen found herself approaching her 103rd birthday. The years had taken their toll on her body, but her mind remained sharp, her spirit undimmed by the passage of time. Each day was a treasure, carefully unwrapped and savored, filled with the joy of watching her family grow and flourish. Little Helen, now 8 years old, had become her great-grandmother's constant companion. The two Helens, separated by nearly a century yet bound by an unbreakable connection, would spend hours together. The elder Helen would share stories of her life, of the world as it once was, and of the incredible journey that had brought their family into being. The younger Helen listened with rapt attention, her eyes wide with wonder at the tales of courage, love, and the power of embracing life's unexpected turns. One crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves danced on the breeze outside her window, Helen awoke with a strange sense of clarity. She felt no fear, no regret, only a profound peace and a deep-seated knowledge that her extraordinary journey was nearing its end. "Grace," she called softly to her daughter, who had been staying at the house to help care for her. "I think it's time to gather the family." Grace, now in her mid-60s with streaks of silver in her hair, understood immediately. With tears glistening in her eyes, she nodded and began making calls. Over the next few days, the house filled with family and close friends. Michael, now in his 80s but still standing tall and strong, rarely left Helen's side. Julie, her hair completely white but her eyes as bright as ever, brought a constant stream of tea and comforting words. Ethan, Grace's husband, corralled the younger children, ensuring the house maintained a balance of somber reflection and the joyous chaos that Helen had always loved. On a quiet evening, with the sun setting in a blaze of orange and pink, Helen asked to be moved to the porch swing. Wrapped in blankets and surrounded by her loved ones, she gazed out at the world with a serene smile. "You know," she began, her voice soft but clear. "When I first found out I was pregnant with Grace at 67, I thought it was the end of everything. I couldn't have been more wrong. It was just the beginning." Grace, sitting beside her mother and holding her hand, felt tears rolling down her cheeks. "Oh, Mom," she whispered. Helen turned to her daughter, her eyes filled with love. "My darling girl, you were the miracle I never knew I needed. You gave my life purpose, filled it with more love and joy than I ever thought possible." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the gathered family. "Each one of you," she continued, "is a part of that miracle, a testament to the fact that it's never too late for new beginnings, never too late to open your heart to love." Little Helen, perched on the porch steps, piped up, "Great-Grandma, are you going to heaven soon?" A hush fell over the group, but Helen just smiled. "Yes, my sweet girl, I think I am. But don't be sad. I've lived a wonderful life, far longer and fuller than I ever expected. And I'll always be with you, in your heart and in the stories we've shared." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Helen closed her eyes, feeling the gentle sway of the porch swing. "You know," she mused, "I read somewhere once that we all die twice. Once when we stop breathing, and again when someone says our name for the last time." She opened her eyes, looking at each face in turn. "Promise me that you'll keep our story alive. Share it with your children and their children. Let them know that miracles can happen at any age, that love knows no boundaries." Grace squeezed her mother's hand. "We promise, Mom. Your story, our story, will live on." Over the next few days, Helen's strength began to fade, but her spirit remained bright. She spent her time sharing final words of wisdom, expressing her love, and listening to the plans and dreams of her family members. Each conversation was a gift, a final thread woven into the tapestry of their shared lives. On the morning of her 103rd birthday, Helen woke early. She asked to be taken outside one last time, to feel the sun on her face and the breeze in her hair. As she sat in her wheelchair, Surrounded by the family she had created against all odds, she felt a profound sense of completion. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for this beautiful life." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Helen Parker, the woman who had become a mother at 67 and a great-grandmother at 95, closed her eyes for the final time. She left this world peacefully, surrounded by the love she had nurtured and grown over decades, leaving behind a legacy that would continue to inspire and touch lives for generations to come. In the days that followed, as the family gathered to celebrate Helen's life, stories flowed like wine. Tales of her determination, her unwavering love, and her ability to embrace life's unexpected journeys were shared and cherished. Laughter mingled with tears as they remembered the remarkable woman who had defied medical odds, societal expectations, and her own fears to create a family bound by love and resilience. Grace, standing before the gathered mourners, her voice strong despite her grief, shared the story of her birth, of Helen's courage in choosing to become a mother so late in life. "My mother," she said, "taught me that it's never too late to start anew, to open your heart to love and to life's possibilities." Her journey, our journey, is a testament to the extraordinary power of love and the human spirit. As the years passed, Helen's story continued to inspire. Grace wrote a book about their unlikely journey, touching hearts around the world. Little Helen, growing into a young woman, chose a career in medicine, driven by the desire to help other women achieve their dreams of motherhood, regardless of age or circumstance. The porch swing where Helen had spent so many precious moments became a family gathering spot, a place where stories were shared, where laughter echoed, and where the presence of the remarkable woman who had started it all could still be felt. And on quiet evenings, when the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, the family would gather on that porch. They would share stories of Helen, keeping her memory alive, ensuring that her name would be spoken with love and reverence for generations to come. For in the end, Helen Parker's legacy was not measured in years or in medical marvels, but in the love she had given and inspired, in the lives she had touched, and in the enduring power of her extraordinary journey. Her story, a beacon of hope and a testament to the limitless possibilities of the human heart, would continue to echo through time, inspiring others to embrace life's unexpected gifts and to believe in the transformative power of love, no matter the odds. As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, twinkling like distant promises, the porch swing creaked gently in the breeze, as if Helen were still there, watching over her family, her love an eternal presence in the lives she had touched. And in that moment, in the hearts of all who had known her and all who would come to know her story, Helen lived on, a timeless reminder that it's never too late for miracles, never too late for love, and never too late to begin the most beautiful chapter of one's life.